Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to give just a few moments so that we can get everybody settled in and situated here. My name is Dolores Garcia. I'll be assisting with some facilitation of this meeting this evening, as well as setting some ground rules and assisting with some technical support. Okay, thank you for taking time out of your evening to invest in the future of your public lands. My name is Dolores Garcia, as I mentioned just a little bit ago. I'm a public affairs specialist for the Bureau of Land Management here in Arizona. And I just want to make you aware of a few of the situation this evening, I guess. Please be aware that this session is being recorded. It will be made publicly via our BLM Arizona YouTube page, as well as our social media channels. In this session, please do not share any personal or sensitive information in the questions or the chat feature, as we cannot guarantee that we will be able to withhold any personal identifying information, otherwise known as PII, that is shared during the session. Microphones and cameras, other than those of the presenters, will be muted through the session. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Closed captioning is available within this meeting. You can find that button as a square surrounded by CC at the bottom of your screen, or possibly at the top of the screen, depending on which version of Zoom you are using. We cannot, because these captions are auto-generated, we cannot guarantee the accuracy of the words in there, as it depends on, a lot of it is dependent on our individual speech patterns, as well as the microphones that folks and our presenters may be using this evening. But this option is available to help to understand what we're saying this evening as well. You will notice in the toolbar also that there's a Q&A option. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation, but you're encouraged to use this feature during the presentation as you see something that may have come up that you would like addressed in that Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Again, the Q&A option is there at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to use that to place your questions in there, as well as the chat feature. You can use the chat feature to chat your host or the host here in this session. And we will also answer those questions at the end of today's presentation.
I know.
Within the chat, we will be sharing some links that you will find helpful. That includes the links to the business plans that we will be going through this evening, as well as the story map. You are encouraged to copy, paste, and share, open those up and save those for review, for future, for developing your comments, so that you understand what we're currently presenting in our current proposal. And you're also encouraged to attend and join us on another virtual session on September 22nd with those same questions. And we'll also be going over the dates for future in-person sessions within the LTVA sites and Quartzsite and Imperial as well, where you know, upon review of some of these plans after tonight, you can ask some more detailed questions there as well. So with that, I do also want to remind you all that comments made here within the session tonight or on our social media pages are not considered official public comment. And for the administrative record, and you will be allowed to, or excuse me, we will be showing you tonight how to make those official comments so that they are considered for use and for the official public record. With that, I will turn it over to Raymond Castro, BLM Yuma Field Manager.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to this virtual public meeting of Bureau of Land Management Yuma Field Office Recreation Fee Proposals. I'm Ray Castro, the Field Manager for the Yuma Field Office, and in this room I have Eddie Mays, Assistant Field Manager for Recreation and Visitor Services, and Bill Alexander, Outdoor Recreation Planner for the Yuma Field Office. So thank you for choosing to spend your time this evening to learn more about what the Yuma Field Office is proposing, how and why we develop these fee proposals, and how you can provide input to this vital process. The Yuma Field Office LTVAs are unique and unparalleled in their offering an opportunity for public land recreation. Our amenity fee sites offer experiences on the Sonoran Desert and the Lower Colorado River. So during this presentation, I'll turn it over to Bill Alexander so he can explain a little bit more about the process. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Rick. Hi, everyone. My name is Bill. I'm going to walk you through this presentation this evening. Purpose of tonight's session is to invite you to provide BLM with your comments on the recreation fee proposals currently in the public comment period. First, we want to provide you with the background and key information about the BLM, what the BLM is proposing, and why we're doing it. Next, I'll show you where you can learn more about each specific proposal that are in draft form currently. And there are two different draft plans, one for the fee amenity program, amenity fee, and then, of course, your long-term visitor areas. Lastly, I'm going to show you how you can help BLM by submitting your written comments on our proposals up until October 21st.
Dolores, can you please get us over to the overview slide, please?
As Ray mentioned, our public lands are very special. We've got some images up here that show some of the different locations in the Yuma Field Office. This is an overlook from the high dam out at Senator's Wash overlooking TK Jones out onto the Colorado River. The one adjacent is the La Posa LTVA during a very busy time. That was that high time from December through February up there a few years back. Those examples depict some of the places that we have and some of the unique challenges that we have with, our very wild setting down here in the desert. Next slide. I'd like to give you a brief history of how we got to this point. The amenity fee program, which I'll start with first, was first implemented in 1996 and then fully implemented here at the Yuma Field Office in 1999. The fee demo program, as it was back then, was fully implemented by Congress in December of 2004, and that's when we took off. It falls under FLIRA, which is the Federal Lands Recreation Enhancement Act. Your long-term visitor areas have been in existence since 1983, and they were actually devised under FLIPMA, and kind of a whole different thing. FLIRA now addresses all of the same things that FLIPMA used to address. Your LTVAs were formulated as an environmental protection mechanism for 3 BLM field offices, the Yuma Field Office, the El Centro Field Office, and the Palm Springs Field Office that operate in 2 different states, Arizona and California. The actual intent of the LTVAs was to reduce degradation of the dispersed areas in the desert while providing participants with a long-term occupancy option with amenities. Those amenities include water, trash collection, dump station, and restrooms. We find that those are the primary amenities relevant to the camping experience. The LTVA program is also now covered by FLIRA, as I had mentioned earlier. All right, so a lot of question, why now? The last fee increase we had was in 2008. And as everyone can probably remember, the markets tipped over in 2008 and the economy was just on its back. 2008 to 2010 was a lot of recovery for our country, but we weren't fully in a position where we needed to increase. We were definitely dropping away from that 90 to 95% cost recovery, which is what we've always, shot for in management of these, but we just quite weren't there. As time marched on, that distance from that 95% recovery rate has gotten less and less and less. We're further away from that to a point where now we absolutely need to make changes to these plans so that we can be fiscally responsible to all of you. The LTVAs and the fee amenity get money from outside sources for different programs. The Great American Outdoors Act provided some of the construction money for some of the new building that took place up in Quartzsite over the past couple of years, some of the paving, stuff like that. And then ARA, which was the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, put in the solar panels that you've seen go into place out there in 2010. Ideally, this office wanted to have a larger solar footprint for the campgrounds to kind of, help offset some of the operational costs. It just wasn't in the cards for us to be able to do it. Back then, there were limitations on what the power lines could tolerate, particularly out at Imperial Dam. And as it was the same thing in Quartzsite, we just didn't have line capacity to manage what we were hoping to put in. So we were pleased to get what we got. Those solar panels do offset some of the expense and running operations for the campground, but far from producing money that we can put back into the program. Let's see what else. Can you drop that down just a little? I think we have more notes on that. Okay, no, I think we can go to the next slide. So the recreation experience improvement opportunities are almost without number out there. In La Posa, because of the extremely high amount of visitation we have many logistical challenges. The trash has been just a huge problem for us year after year. Because there are more and more people who are in vans or buses who do not have any means of self-containment, the vault toilets themselves are also continuously getting used to the point that they exceeded the anticipated use, and they exceeded what the contracts for dumping the trash and for pumping the sewage could do. So we've had to do a number of revisions. We're constantly trying to add restrooms. We increased trash capacity this year. We've added additional spots for more dumpsters to be installed and increase the number of pickups per week. I believe the septic contract was also adjusted, and hopefully we'll be able to keep up with that very intensive use that those LTVAs are seeing. I want to give you a little overview of some of the different recreational opportunities out here on your public lands. It's a huge array, and it runs the gamut from, driving to biking, boating, camping, historic and cultural sites. There are educational and interpretive programs, fishing, hiking, hunting, riding horses, target shooting. OHVs are a huge contribution to the recreation program here in Arizona. There's rock hounding, there's wildlife over pretty near every inch of this desert. And then of course your different water sports, swimming, skiing, boating, kayaking, canoeing, you name it. Currently, the Yuma Field Office administers 8 different recreation sites in Arizona and California. Bear in mind that the state lines are great for the states, but federally, it doesn't mean a whole lot. The Yuma Field Office does manage the lands that are in the state of California, or just slightly over the California line. And then the vast portion of the Yuma Field Office's 1.2 million acres are in southwestern Arizona. Of our 1.2 million acres, you are going to still retain 1.185 million acres of Yuma Field Office managed public lands that is free for use. There are additional developed recreation sites that do not charge fees, but the vast majority of it is just free for you to come and go and enjoy as you choose. Getting back to the fee for play recreation sites, there's a number of different recreation passes that are relevant. You have the 4th grade Every Kid Outdoors pass. You have the America the Beautiful passes. There are military passes, access passes, senior passes, annual passes, all kinds of stuff. It's important to note that in the LTVA, those are special fee areas and no recreational discount passes apply or are relevant to those locations. But they are relevant in your amenity fee sites. And I would encourage everyone to look into those if you don't already have one. All right. So site-specific passes, particularly with the Yuma Field Office amenity fee program and the decals, your RUPs, the yellow or pink envelopes that you get on site, those are usually guaranteed for use at a specific site within the Yuma Field Office. They're not good in California. They're not good in field offices adjacent. They are exclusive to the Yuma Field Office. So how do you use your America the Beautiful pass? This slide shows you how the standard amenity site and places that it can be used. for day use, at TK Jones for the day use for the boat launch, and of course, the Oxbow. Your expanded amenity sites are relevant in all of those locations if you're going to camp overnight or use, some of the additional services there. The BLM engages in a national program where we honor the fee-free opportunities. There are generally 5 free days throughout the year, and they move around a little bit based on the calendar, but Martin Luther King Day, Juneteenth, July 16th, this last year, which was BLM's birthday. The September 28th will be National Public Lands Day. That's coming up real soon. And of course, November 11th, Veterans Day, one very near and dear to everyone at this table. Okay, FLREA, the Federal Lands Recreation Enhancement Act, allows the BLM to collect recreation fees at sites and areas that provide certain amenities and for the issuance of special recreation permits. So it addresses both the fee amenity program and your LTVAs. And that gives the government, the BLM authority to collect fees for use, occupancy, entertainment at those locations. This slide demonstrates how some of your fees are used. There's lots of repair and maintenance. All of those sites need enhancement. There's all kinds of things. There's interpretation, visitor information, there's brochures that have to be produced. That law enforcement component is vital to maintaining the safety and security of all of the recreation sites. We work a little bit into the habitat and restoration. We do a lot of tree plantings. We encourage, new habitat for fishery structures, stuff like that. And then, of course, there's those direct operating costs. You have labor. There's the fee compliance costs, site cleaning, your visitor contacts, and of course, the volunteer program that makes all of these programs function and run. I think an important thing for everyone to know tonight is that 100% of the fees that are collected from the Yuma Field Office recreation sites go back into the Yuma Field Office recreation program. The LTVA money is split out and spent just in the LTVA program, and the amenity fee program money is spent back into the amenity fee program. Now, there are a little bit of concurrently operating type things. There are shared amenities for the LTVA and for the fee amenity program, but that doesn't hinder it. That helps and complements it and helps us to keep those things operational and moving forward. So there's a lot of concern about how recreation fees are set. The first thing starts with us recognizing we've got a problem. We're not able to pay the bills. We're not able to meet the contracts. We're not able to staff these things as you deserve to have them staffed. Public involvement is a big thing. All throughout this last 15 years since our last fee increase, I'm out in that field all the time. I'm talking to a lot of you at different times. And the one thing that I am consistently hearing is, where's the staff? Well, we've had to cut corners because we don't have money coming in like we need to. And one of the things that got cut were the staffing requirements. The other thing that we do is we look at market analysis. And it's pretty hard to do a market analysis on the LTVAs. The amenity fee, you can go out and there are private entities that operate very similarly or offer the same type or similar type amenities. But the LTVA is a kind of a standalone thing. There is not anything really like that anywhere, not in the private sector and certainly not even in the government sector. This is such a unique thing. It is extremely difficult. We were given a mandate and a very, very set pile of parameters, I guess, when we set forth to develop this business plan. And one of those things that is a key market, a key piece of how these plans are built right now are doing these market analysis. Well, it's pretty hard to do a market analysis for something that is kind of a unicorn out there when it comes to recreational opportunities. So this was our best run at it for trying to compare things. We looked at private, we looked at free places, we looked at just stuff all around, and this was the best we were able to come up with. So what is a business plan? BLM documents recreation fee proposals in the form of a business plan. The business plan describes a change to, the basis to change a fee in compliance with FLIR, the cost of administering those fee sites, and priorities for future expenditures. Okay, so what's in a draft business plan? If anybody, and hopefully you've had a chance to look this thing over, we give you the background and the authorities. We give you the intro into the Yuma Field Office Recreation Program. We describe, existing or proposed fee sites and areas. And then we tell you what we think the proposed fee rates could be. We talk to you about our operating costs, the revenue that is actually, built in or that is actually earned and that we're, projecting could be earned with the proposals. All right, then we lay out the priorities for future expenditures, talk to you about those staffing needs, what kind of new amenities need to be added, things that need to be built to take care of future generations as they come. We analyze that fee rates against, that market out there, the private or otherwise. Some of those are private, state, and like I said, the LTVA doesn't really have anything, but the fee amenity stuff does. There's lots of things out there that are very in kind or similar. And then we talk to you about the impacts from changing and not changing those fee rates. And finally, we do a public outreach. And this public outreach is what we're doing right now. And this is why it is so vital that we hear from you guys what works, what doesn't, and what you think. Just because we're coming forth with a plan doesn't mean it's set in stone. We need to hear from you what's happening and what you think of this. All right. So there are fee changes that cannot be proposed through a business planning process. And those are usually for your special recreation permits, not individual special recreation permits like your LTVA permits are. These are so that people can do commercial or competitive events or have organized groups or, vending out there on those public lands. So right now we're in the recreation fee proposal process. We've conducted our analysis. We believe that BLM's fee rates are too low. The Arizona State Office has reviewed the plan. BLM headquarters has reviewed the plan. Right now, we're in the public comment period, and that'll last until October 21st. So it is vitally important that you guys participate like you are tonight, and that you keep sending comments and let us know. Once all of that comment period closes, we'll consider the comments received, and we may wind up revising the draft plan. BLM is going to present that draft plan to the Resource Advisory Council here pretty soon. I believe our intended time is hopefully in December of this year. If the RAC approves that plan, or if they wish to implement changes, then we'll go from there. BLM is going to consider what the RAC and what the public input are. And once we believe we have something that is agreeable to as many as is possible, then we'll go ahead and implement those changes. So part of the business outreach plan is there's a multifaceted approach to try to get the word out to everyone and give everybody an opportunity. One of the things that they're utilizing now are story maps. And we do these virtual information sessions and public meetings. We're going to be doing some in-person meetings and information sessions here later on. We've reached out to the media outlets around the state. This thing is all over social media. And then we need to reach out to the tribal nations, our congressional staff, the governor's office, federal and state agencies adjacent to us who may be impacted, our county and municipal partners and contacts, any interested group, and of course, the Resource Advisory Council. All right, so you can look at these draft business plans on the website. And that QR code is extremely useful. It will take you right to it. And you can click on the icon and look at either or all of the business plans. And I would encourage you all to do that if you haven't done so. All right, right, so the story maps, there's a highlighted HTTPS there. Click on that thing and that will walk you through, and it gives you the opportunity to look at each individual sites. We'll go ahead and bump to the next one. For the Yuma Field Office, we have fee amenity sites. And then, of course, your long-term visitor areas, the La Posa long-term visitor area and the Imperial Dam long-term visitor area. All right, so the amenity fee sites are, of course, the La Posa Imperial Dam during the non-winter months, that April 16th through September 14th timeframe. Senator's Wash North Shore, the South Shore, the boat launch, and of course, the day use area. Then there's TK Jones Campground and Boat Launch, the Oxbow Campground and Boat Launch. We've proposed another new site, which is the Fortuna Pond Campground, which will be to the 20-acre parcel that is to the east of Fortuna Pond itself. We did not propose any plans for the immediate area around Fortuna Pond itself. That is part of DM 613. It was built for to mitigate the loss of sportsmen's activities, and we don't plan to do any changes to that. We want to keep that so hunters and fishermen can have a good time on that. Because there's always such interest in people camping in that area, it kind of makes sense for us to try to develop a good campground with the appropriate amenities and services there that can allow people to come and stay and visit and enjoy the area. All right, so Yuma Field Office fee amenity sites. For right now, the day use is $10. We're not proposing any change to the day use. Our market study has shown that, you know, in the interest of environmental justice and social justice, that $10 day use rate is a good and relevant fee, and it makes sense. Overnight occupancy per motor vehicle is currently $15, and we're proposing raising it to $20. And then, of course, the annual pass, which is 2 decals that covers up to 3 motor vehicles that are registered to the same owners. That currently is $75, but it's proposed to go to $200. And again, the last increase for that permit was in 2008. So this interactive story map, this shows you the Senator's Wash North Shore area. This shows you the Senator's Wash South Shore area. This shows you the boat launch and day use area. This shows you TK Jones Campground and boat launch on the Colorado River. This shows you the Oxbow Campground and boat launch also on the Colorado River. And this shows you the proposal for the Fortuna Pond Campground. You can see Fortuna Pond Campground there to the left middle side of the page. And then that area immediately adjacent to the east toward the right. There's 20 acres of very sparse vegetation right there south of the Gila River and north of the High Levee Road. And that's where we're proposing to put the Fortuna Pond Campground. All right, so 2 of the areas that have, for the past, 25 years, been involved in the amenity fee program are Betty's Kitchen and the Ehrenberg Sand Bowl. We're recommending that both of these areas be removed from the fee amenity program. And there's a number of different reasons why we think that would be advantageous to our public and advantageous to the agency as well. First and foremost is that the Ehrenberg Sand Bowl is a very remote area. It's very difficult to maintain any type of logistical support for amenities at that location. Betty's Kitchen has a very long history in the Yuma Field Office. And we think that Betty's Kitchen could be better managed under cooperative agreements and different mechanisms that would allow people to enjoy that location for what it best offers. All right. Okay, So next business plans I want to talk to you about, which is probably the main reason most of you are here tonight, is the La Posa LTVA and Imperial long-term visitor areas. All right. So the Yuma Field Office, La Posa and Imperial Dam LTVAs. We're recommending and proposing fee changes to the LTVA season for winter months, September 15th through April 15th. At current, your short-term permit is $40 for 14 days. We're recommending changing that short-term permit to a 30-day permit and propose raising that permit fee to $200. Your long-term permit, still valid from September 15th through April 15th, currently goes for $180, and we're proposing a raise to $600 for that. This is an overview and your story map for the La Posa area. That's 11,400 acres just south of Quartzsite on both sides of Highway 95 that encompass your La Posa long-term visitor area. Your Imperial Dam LTVA is about 3,500 acres inclusive of the fee amenity sites. And like I said, those are concurrently running programs that share the larger amenities for trash, water, dump, that sort of thing. Same fee structure is proposed for both of those. Your short term currently is 14 days at $40. We're recommending bumping that to 30 days for $200, with your long term still being valid September 15th through April 15th. Currently at $180, I apologize, and proposed raise to $600. So everyone who's done business plans within the state of Arizona has been given a recommendation on how to adjust for future increases. We're going to utilize a index routine adjustment to fees. We're going to try to avoid steep fee increases in the future. We're going to ensure fees evolve in tandem with the changing costs of goods and services. So the proposal is if when there is a 20% in the consumer price index urban, the CPIU annual average, the BLM would have an option to adjust fees by 20%. All right, so we're running to the end of things here. So how do you submit your comments? And remember, nothing that you put on the chat or anything tonight is considered official comments. We need these to come through these three mechanisms, either through email, mail, or hand delivered. Comments posted to our social media pages can't be considered, or they're not considered official comments for the record. Comments must be in writing and submitted by October 21st. So please get those comments in. All right. The unique email or mailing address to send or drop off your written comments for each plan can be found at either the BLM Recreation Fee Proposal Story Map, in the draft business plan website, or in the Dear Reader letter of each plan. And this slide just kind of gives you a little shot of what you would be looking at once you jump into the business plan on how to provide your comments. All right, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing some future meetings here. We had this meeting here tonight. We're going to do an in-person meeting in Quartzsite on October 9th from 1 to 3 p.m. That's a Wednesday, and it will be at the La Posa South Ramada. And then after that, we'll conduct 2 information sessions. They will be in person. The first one at Imperial Dam will be 1 to 3 p.m. on November 6th. And then the next in-person in Quartzsite will be 1 to 3 p.m. on November 20th. Folks, I want to thank you for your time, and I will open this up to questions.
Thanks, Bill. We did receive several questions that came in through either direct message or through our Q&A portal. The Q&A portal is still open for questions. Remember that comments dropped into our chat or sent to myself or any of the other co-hosts as direct messages do not count as official public comments. What we will be addressing are the questions that we received in either the Q&A portal or the questions that came through in as direct messages through our chat here. So we'll start with the Q&A portal questions. Where can we get a copy of the report and expense fee for the dump station in Tyson Wash? I would like to see the report providing there was water under that ground before construction was started, and all of a sudden there isn't. Is there a public record?
Logan, thank you for your question. We have not received that completion yet. It's still with contracting, but it's definitely something that you can submit a FOIA request for.
Thank you. Next question is from Willow Murphy. The increase of occupancy brings in more money, not less. So I'm confused why you need more per permit. Since LTVAs have been more popular, your revenue has improved vastly.
Hi, Willow. Thank you for your question. True, that does raise revenue, but it also raises the amount of wear and tear and utilization and extra trash and problems with the sewage lagoons and the sewage dump station and the restrooms and everything else. So what we're doing is we're chasing our tail on this thing. We are not keeping up with the use that was there. When you put more use on top of it, it increases the amount of times that those dumpsters have to be emptied, how much volume is going into them. Same thing with the restrooms. We're just not keeping up.
Thank you, Bill. We've got another question from Willow Murphy in the Q&A. What tree planting is happening in the Sonoran Desert, aka where the long-term visitor area are?
Hello, Willow. We presented 2 draft business plans tonight, and the tree planting do happen in amenity fee sites around the Imperial Dam Recreation Area.
And the Oxbow.
Thank you. Next question is from Daryl McDonald. Can you provide an explanation of what the comparables market analysis consisted of, i.e. were other BLM lands considered? Did you explore to come to the conclusion that your fees were low?
Thank you for your question, Daryl. So as I stated, the LTVAs are kind of unicorns. There are not other BLM options to look at that match what we have, what we offer with the LTVAs. So we were forced to look at private market. There isn't even anything state ran, Arizona Game and Fish or Arizona State Parks, nothing. So we were pretty much stuck just looking at comparables that are shown in the business plan for private entities.
Okay, we've got another. I see Nancy pop in there. Did you?
Sure, I'd just like to add a little to what Bill shared. My name is Nancy Patterson, and I'm BLM Arizona's Recreation and Visitor Services lead for the state. And to add a little bit of the bigger picture from what Bill said, we do have 6 plans that are out right now for public comment, different business plans. Each of those plans conducted a market analysis relevant to the geographic area where their sites are found. And that is part of the requirement within the FLORIA, is that market analysis is relevant to the area, the geographic location where the sites are held. And then that assessment as well is based, we have that option, and then we also have a cost recovery option to evaluate, which includes that operating cost of how much it is to provide different services in the amenity site and operate these locations. So those are the 2 different ways that we set those that we assess the different fees. And when you look at the plans, you'll see that each of those 6 proposed plans includes information about that fair market value, the assessment that they did in those areas.
Thank you, Nancy. We have another question here from Joe Aspara. First, he's making a bit of a comment, but I think it provides context to his question. First of all, everyone, regardless of the type of RV, dumps trash. The trash bins are used by Class A's down to people sleeping in their vehicles. There's more trash because of additional campers, irregardless of the way they camp. Additionally, more campers means more fees you are able to collect. Second, your report states that 63% of your operating costs are being covered. So how is 333% fee increase justified?
Oh, hi, Joe. So that's a great question. So our service contracts went up, increased by more than double this year. And everything across the board costs way, way, way more. Additionally, there are infrastructure problems that we have out there that the deferred maintenance and capital improvement monies are not going to cover, can't cover. And if we do not address those problems, we're looking at having to take some very radical steps, either limit the number of people to the LTVAs or maybe even not even be able to offer services. Consequently, the matrix that was put together was an effort to identify, well, it was identified both by the OIG, what should be happening with regards to staff. Then you pile on those additional contract costs. And that's what led us to where we're at with the proposed fee increase right now.
Thank you. Next question is from Chris Kimpton. Why is there a 2 decal limit during the summer, yet not for the winter? Wouldn't this help avoid sharing of decals and increase the BLM revenue?
Hi, Chris. Great question. So the 2 decal limit, it was based on the fee amenity or the amenity fee program. And it's an entirely different animal. The LTVA, because there are so many people that are more intent on spending a long-term amount of time in the LTVA, they have an RV, a car, potentially a utility trailer, or maybe an ATV or a motorcycle. It made sense to have the 3 decals for the LTVA. The fee amenity doesn't require that same level. The fee amenity only requires a decal on the motor vehicle itself. And so consequently, 2 decals meets our need. Your LTVA requires a decal on each conveyance, motor vehicle, trailer, ATV, motorcycle, whatever. And so 3 decals seem like a logical place. And it's pretty much been in place, well, the 25 years I've been here, and I believe 10 years before I was here as well.
We've got a question from Marcus Ray. What % of these permits are extended stay?
Answer it. Hi, Marcus. So if I understood your question, you were talking about we had 9,192 permits sold last year. Of that, roughly 3,000 were long-term permits. The rest were short-term permits. So you basically 1/3 approximately are long-term and 2/3 being your short-term.
Thank you. I'm also going to be addressing some of the questions that are coming in toward me as a direct message, not through the Q&A. So I'm going to bump that way for a few questions here. I have Douglas Tooley. How have you identified specific issues from reduced staffing? And have you considered the impacts and benefits upon low-income individuals for seniors? And thank you for your patience with the silence. We're working internally to make sure that we're getting the right subject matter expert to answer your question.
So the staffing concern is a huge problem. It's an operational safety factor for those that do work. It's a safety factor for the volunteers. And the biggest thing is it's a safety factor for our public out there. Additionally, if we don't have staff, we can't do fee compliance. We can't do cleanups. We can't take care of the problems that are out there. So the staffing issue was raised first during that OIG inspection back in 2015. I immediately identified that we did not have enough park rangers, did not have enough law enforcement for this type of a program with its intensive use. All right, the next thing with regard to the demographics, low income, high income, those type of things. One of the things that I heard last year when I was out just working and talking with folks is that there has become a belief that the LTVAs were formulated for homeless people or for low income people or for people who don't have additional means, that kind of thing. And I want to be appropriate as I say this. The LTVAs are not an entitlement. It's not like your Social Security or your Medicaid or any of that kind of thing. This is a pay for utilization government ran campground. And consequently, nobody wants to price anyone out of anything, but the reality is we have a responsibility to be fiscally responsible as we run these campgrounds. Now, that can look a lot of different ways. Obviously, the plan that we've proposed is something that everybody needs to be involved with and give us your comments, give us your thoughts. But the reality is if we don't pay our bills, we don't have a campground.
I'd like to add a little additional there with what Bill was sharing as well. The in regards to the question with seniors and other people, the FLORIA does not grant the BLM authority, does not grant authority for BLM to provide discounts or reduced recreation fees for local residents or other groups. It's FLORIA bases its structure and the authorities within it around the amenities that are provided. And so there's a structure that we follow as well as other the other federal agencies that use the FLORIA that we're required to follow. And so that one of those provisions is that we are not able to provide discounts for groups because it's based on the types of amenities that exist. So some of the other, Bill was explaining earlier in the presentation about some of the other options that do exist. And oftentimes the things like the America the Beautiful Pass or the Every Kid Outdoor Pass, those kinds of options, they relate to the amenity side of things. So the Yuma Field Office has the two different plans out right now. The long-term visitor areas are part of they have individual special recreation permits. That's when you purchase your pass, it's an individual special permit. And those do not apply, like America the Beautiful does not apply to those because it's a special area that's designated for a certain kind of use. However, in that at the amenity fee sites like Senator Wash, TK Jones, we do have the America the Beautiful passes, and that includes a senior pass as well as an access pass, the military pass, and the general pass as well. So that is one avenue that the federal government does have in order to provide those discounts. And then another option too is the site-specific passes, which can provide some value for people who are especially frequent users to recreation areas. And then finally, there's the fee-free days that we mentioned earlier in the presentation as well for the amenity sites of things. So just again, to summarize, that's unfortunately, there is not the ability within the FLORIA to provide discounts or reduced recreation fees. The authority doesn't exist in there.
We did have a reminder in our chat, which is a very good one for us because we do use so many, but acronyms. I know we've mentioned Floria and we spelled it out within our presentation earlier, but as you go through, as you use other acronyms, please make sure, and this is a reminder for us, a good reminder for us, is to spell them out and so that everybody understands what we're referring to. So with that, I'll continue with next question, and it kind of goes back to some of that question with regards to reduced staffing and enforcement. And this comes from Dale Stansel. Question, will the increase help you to enforce the regulations that have completely ignored for many years in the LTVA and surrounding areas?
Yes, honestly, those fees are going to be put back into that program, either in labor, ops, maintenance, all across the board. And so, yes, one of the things that will be addressed are the violations and hopefully make a cleaner, safer, better location for you folks to recreate.
Thank you. So that I've addressed the direct messages that I received. Now I'll go back to our Q&A portal to continue with our question and answers there. The next question is from Catherine Corbett. If this plan is passed, when would the new fees go into effect?
Hasn't been determined yet.
Thank you, Catherine, for that question. We do not have an anticipated date of when these fees would go into effect. We're still accepting comments during this time until October 21st. We still have to present to the Resource Advisory Council. So we don't have an exact date of when they can go into effect. Once that plan gets approved, then we'll have a better idea of when these fees would go into effect.
And just to clarify, just to ask the question, that would not go into effect this season, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. When would you see, based on the earliest time frame, would they possibly go into effect?
The earliest would probably be the following season, September 2025. And once again, that's not set in stone, but that'd be the earliest.
Thank you. The next question is from Marcus Ray.
Could I add one thing, Dolores?
Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Thanks. One thing too with those questions on the implementation, if you have thoughts on that, it's also something you could add into your comments between now and October 21, and your thoughts about implementation of when those fees should go into place.
Thank you. Next question comes to us from Marcus Ray. What happens when the CPIU goes up, but the COLA does not? And here we are talking about the COLA, meaning cost of living, to kind of explain a few acronyms there.
Marcus, that's a great question. And honestly, that is a concern. And that's kind of where we're at right now during these times. The CPIU is up, cost of living is not keeping up with it. And that's something that each manager is going to have to stop and evaluate carefully and make a determination whether it's time and appropriate to raise those fees or not. There's no guarantees on any of this. We're doing our best effort to put forward a plan and give you guys some idea how an increase could occur. But yeah, that's a good question.
And to add to that, the business plans, all of the business plans across the state that we have out for public comment do include the proposal for the CPIU, the Consumer Price Index. If there's an increase of 20%, that BLM would have the option to adjust fees by 20%. It's listed as an option, and so as Bill was just sharing, it would be something then that would be evaluated, that offices would evaluate and determine if they would use that or not. So it's at this point, it's to provide an option, and part of that is to help create just a benefit of that is that it helps so that we wouldn't have steeper fee increases or changes happening. It would be a more gradual over time as part of the intent of that. So they would fees would evolve in tandem with changing costs and goods and services. and that's something as well with the comment period that we'd like to get input on of the CPIU, and if it what your thoughts are about that during this comment period.
Okay, let's go on to the next question. It comes from Tim Painter. He does have a comment there about the comparison to free sites, but his question is, only written comments are acceptable, ? Web comments not acceptable. And written comments, we're not looking for things to be handwritten. They don't have to be pen and ink comments, but you can email your comments to the Yuma Field Office web address, which is the BLM_AZ YFO web at blm.gov. What we're saying is unacceptable is if you comment in the comment section of the Facebook page, those are not considered official public comments. Or if you send a direct message within this chat this evening, those comments are not considered official to the public record.
I know the first part was not posed as a question. I do want to mention though that about the market analysis and the statement about the free sites. With the market analysis, the evaluation is of other fee-based sites, not free sites. So that's why there isn't a reference there of free sites. We use the FLORIA guidance is that we use the market analysis based on fees that are in the surrounding area.
And to further expand on that, the Yuma Field Office does have free 14-day areas in around Quartzsite outside of the LTVAs, and we have 4 developed free recreation areas as well.
And what we'll do right now to answer Amy Rupp's question, which is the next question on the list, is the email address, as that slide was pretty quickly passed or went pretty quickly through things here. We'll go ahead and copy and paste into our chat the links to the business plans, which also includes the address, which is the physical mailing address, as well as the email address that you can submit your public comments. So that will be going into the chat at this time. If it lets me there, that some of those were a little large. I just received. Let's get that cleared out. Let's see if that'll let me send it now. Thank you for your patience. Okay, next question is from Matthew Murphy. Why is this all occurring when the visitors aren't there? What good are public meetings when the majority of the visitors are out of the area?
Matthew, thank you for your question. And this is the same reason why we've been able to use technology and reach out to a large number of stakeholders and participants, recreationalists, through this Zoom platform and other web outreaches. And we are having some public input and public meetings through the beginning of the LTVA visitor season.
Another thing, Matthew, is we have a bit of a time constraint that these plans need to get done, get before the RAC, and then hopefully get approved or adjusted accordingly so they can go out and be implemented. And we're rapidly coming to the end of a cycle where we may not have the accessibility to the Resource Advisory Council. And if that happens, this will be years before we get to do this again, potentially. And so it's very important that we grab the opportunity while it's available to us and try to make some things happen here.
Okay, we've got a question here from Tim Painter. Would you consider having an unbiased person write the report?
Hi, Tim. That's a great question. Back in 2015, we actually had a third-party independent contractor come down and write a draft plan for us. Regrettably, it was never brought to fruition, and it was a very comprehensive, very good plan. Here we are 8 years later, almost 9 years later, and the style and formatting for what a plan has to have and look like made that plan no longer relevant. But believe it or not, that third-party contractor, even 9 years ago, came up with a fee structure that exceeded what we're proposing right now. And they had no interest one side or the other. They were just simply going based upon projected costs, projected increases, current visitation, and what they anticipated our contracts would look like. And rather amazing that we wound up where we did, 9 years later, and some of it's very, very relevant. So because there is such a huge expense for someone from the outside to write a permit or write a business plan, it's something that we undertook internally. One, we understand every intimate detail of these programs. And two, I think we have a better chance of actually talking with all of you, even though I'd like to see more people involved with this whole thing. At least we're getting good participation right now.
Okay, let's move on our Q&A section here to Douglas Tooley. Have you identified specific issues from reduced staffing? And I believe he did ask this question in the chat earlier, and we might have addressed this. So let's move on to Tom Painter's question about how are you meeting your obligations for social justice, underprivileged access by raising your fees to this percentage? And we may have addressed it before, but I know there's some people that have just popped in. We might do a quick address again, since it looks to be coming up a couple more times down the road.
Okay. So the social justice aspect of the LTVAs is greatly different than the social justice aspect of the day use recreation sites. The day use recreation site for the amenity fees did not change. Your LTVAs are a different type of recreational venue. They have different operational costs, and quite, as I mentioned before, and like I said, I can't stress this enough. I want to be appropriate in this. These LTVAs are recreation sites. They are not, what's the word I'm looking for, boys?
They're not places that call.
They're not entitlements. They're not a retirement plan. They're not like Medicaid or Medicare. They're not a social insurance plan. These are recreational sites.
And then just to add a little bit to what Bill was sharing there, just again to reiterate the FLRIA, which is the Federal Lands Recreation Enhancement Act, and it provides the authority for the Bureau of Land Management as well as other federal sites, federal agencies to have recreation fee sites. Underneath FLRIA, there is not provision to grant authority to the BLM for discounts or to reduce recreation fees for local residents or other groups. It's based instead on the services that are provided, the amenities that are there, the recreation areas that are there. And so that within FLRIA, we don't have that option. And so we do what we do within FLRIA as well as we look at the market analysis of the local area. We look at the costs of operating the location, provide that in the business report, and then we also in the business plan, and then we also seek that feedback from the public. Within the plans as well, there is a section on demographics, and so that includes environmental justice communities and the local communities. And when you look at the LTVA plan, you'll see that there's also information in there of where people have come from or traveled to with the LTVAs, and that's part of the pass of the permit when you all fill that in. So it provides some information for how people are using the different sites.
Thank you both for that reiteration of that question there, or the answer to that question. How much does the federal government contribute to the BLM, and why is it not included in the proposal? And this comes from Susan Bush.
Susan, great question. So there's appropriated dollars that come from Congress down to the BLM, down to the Yuma Field Office level. However, these sites are fee-based, special recreation areas, and basically every dollar spent at this site goes directly back to the site. That's the reason why those funds are not expended at these LTVAs. This is totally fee dollars going right back to the program.
Thank you, Ray. Next question comes from Ed Willis. What manager decided to change the fee structure? What process was used? Was any public input allowed before this change occurred?
Ed, thank you for your question. Like Bill mentioned before, this was from the Office of Inspector General in 2015. They come do an assessment and decided that, hey, our fees are way under fair market value compared to the sites that are near us, surrounding area for the LTVAs. As far as a decision being made or how did we come up with this change, that's why we're in a comment period right now. We have not changed anything. We're looking forward to receiving your comments, your suggestions before a change or maybe no change happens. But that's what we're having these public comment opportunities.
Thank you, Ray.
Then
Oh, yeah,
within
Nancy?
this, also to provide a little context within FLREA, so again, the Federal Lands Recreation Enhancement Act, one of the requirements of that is to conduct a comparability analysis or a market analysis of the area, as well as looking at those operating costs of the different recreation sites. And if we find those rates are below that market value, then that helps prompt the offices to develop these draft business plans. So this is an effort that BLM Arizona is doing across the entire state. And so right now there are 6 proposals that are out because we have done this analysis and identified the need to update business plans. You'll see this as well across the Bureau of Land Management. There's efforts to review the recreation areas and evaluate the fee structures within those sites in order to contemporize them, make sure that sites meet the needs of maintenance as well as operations so that people can have a quality recreation experience. And so as Ray was sharing there as well, that's where that begins. Then we prepare a plan and we put it out for public comment, which is what we have done right now. So these are all proposed fees and we're seeking your input on these plans. And that includes like what you would envision or how you would see these update or adjust. And we want to get that feedback. We're going to hear from you, and by October 21st is our goal.
Thank you, Nancy. I just got a good reminder from a member of the public here, reminding us that if those of us BLMers who are answering the questions could also just announce themselves so we can better identify audibly who is answering the question. When you answer the question, that would be great. And just as a reminder, my name is Dolores Garcia, and I'm helping to moderate the session this evening. But next question, officially, is from Marcus Ray. How many income streams do you track when building revenues?
Marcus, this is Ray Castro, Field Manager for the Yuma Field Office. And there's 2 income streams. One would be the amenity fee income, and the other one would be LTVA income.
Thank you. This is Dolores Garcia with the next question from Douglas Tooley. Have you considered the impacts, including health, of this fee increase on limited income disabled seniors, say those receiving food assistance?
Hi, Douglas. Hey, this is Bill Alexander. That's always a relevant concern, just on the human side of it. As far as a business application goes, the LTVAs are fee recreation areas. They are not entitlements. They are not to be considered places where your lack of income, your health, or anything else can justify or not justify what business expenditures the BLM has to engage in. we are still facing the same situation, whether someone has no money or whether someone has a lot of money. We still have to haul that garbage, pump that sewage, make sure that water is treated and potable, and make sure that the infrastructure out there stays upright and standing and serviceable and available to all of the visitors.
Thank you, Bill. We have a question from Georgette Bales. What specifically will you do with increase of huge revenue? How will you manage all those low-income RVers that will flood into the free BLM areas because they can't afford the increase in fees?
Thank you for your question. This is Ray Castro again. And the increased fees will help in a lot of ways. For one, we do need potable water tanks. We need to be replaced. We need to update our amenities. We need to update our infrastructure that's taking a huge hit based off the visitation numbers that we're receiving. As far as those free 14-day areas, that's something that we have to work on year after year. And that's where our park rangers and law enforcement can help us out a lot.
Thank you, Ray. From Douglas Tooley. How about an incremental increase? 20% of 80% is $36. How about an incremental increase?
Thank you, Douglas. Ray Castro again. And this is a great opportunity for you to make those comments for incremental increases. Nothing's set in stone. This plan has not been approved yet. So take this opportunity to submit those comments and let us know what you feel will work best.
Thank you. Next question is from Susan Bush. And that is, have any demographic studies been done on the people using the LTVAs? For example, are you aware that significant percentages are elderly and disabled, mostly women? How do you rationalize putting elderly and women out of public lands?
Hi, Susan, this is Bill. Yes, we did a study back in 2017. Now, we may not have captured all of the demographic type information in that study. It was more about visitor appreciation or visitor recommendations or satisfaction. It was more about visitor satisfaction with the LTVAs. And that was a GIPRA survey. Hold on, and I'll have that acronym for you.
This is Eddie Mays. The GIPRA survey is a government performance and results acts reporting.
Those GIPRAs will usually capture an age demographic, but beyond that, it doesn't necessarily capture race, gender, or socioeconomic background or ability or disability, any of that kind of stuff. It's a little benign on what it does grab. So, but it's a good question, and maybe that's something that we can encourage the next time we do a survey to see if there's a way to capture that kind of information and apply it.
Thank you. Next question comes from Chris Kimpton. So your fees doubled and our price for permits tripled. Who's doing the math?
Chris, this is Bill. That's a great question. So anytime the BLM, I've been doing this for 25 years. Anytime the BLM enacts a fee increase, we generally lose anywhere between 10 to 15% just on principle. People that don't come back for any number of reasons. Now, I've kind of always attributed that to people being angry about the fee increase. What we usually see, though, is that rebounds within the second, third, and fourth year and exceeds and goes from there. Now, there's a lot of things that affect our visitation in those LTVAs, and it it goes the gamut of the economy to election years to domestic issues like, disease, or like we are right now, the socioeconomic status of our country. I do think all of that's going to affect. I lost it. Can you pull that? Oh, so by tripling that permit cost, we still have to anticipate, based upon what we're supposed to have, what we have to have, what that total amount is. And that total amount is based upon the previous year's permit sales. And we do a matrix, figure it back in, and that's really how that permit fee proposal was produced.
Next question from Douglas Tooley. Does the business plan include any cost besides solar, including solar hot water?
Thank you, Douglas. And once again, this is why we're in the public comment period. We have needs and that we need to address for sure. We meaning the BLM Yuma Field Office. However, this is your opportunity to let us know what else would you like to see out there? What needs improvement? What needs to be added? So please submit your comments.
Another question from Donald McClune. Why the large jump in price? With about 9,100 visitors last year at $180, that's $1.5 million in revenue. So going to $600, that's $5.5 million. I think it's greed from the government.
We have it. Hi, Donald. Hey, this is Bill. So that 9,100 permits was not all long-term permits. Like I said, a third of that was long-term and a third of that was short-term permits. So total revenue last year was about 893,000, a little bit more, somewhere right in there. And so I understand what you're trying to do there, but we're never going to make $5.6 million out there. If we do 9,100 permits with the same amount, 1/3 being long-term, 1/3 being short-term, we should come up with, ideally, it's in the plan.
Around a little over 2 million.
Yeah, I think it come up to $2.2 million for the long-term visitor area. And then the rest of the revenue coming out of the amenity fee program. Please take a look at the plan when you get a chance, Donald. It's all in there in tables for you.
A question for Marcus Ray, kind of going into the same avenue there. Are you in this to turn a profit or break even?
Marcus, this is Ray. And no, the BLM is not in a business to turn a profit. We are solely recuperating costs. Like Bill mentioned before, contracts going up, nearly doubling, infrastructure that needs to be either updated or replaced. This is solely to break even.
Leave it rolling. I'll answer Marcus's question. Hey, Marcus, this is Bill again. Your question is, are you in this to turn a profit or break even? We need to effectively pay the bills. We need to hold some in reserve for those catastrophic emergencies, like when a well pump goes down or a pump for the sewage lagoon goes down. There's a number of different things that are extremely costly, and particularly when we don't have days or even weeks to wait. All of that kind of stuff is super important, super relevant. And having a little bit of money in reserve is not a bad thing.
And that includes, maintenance fund, law enforcement, staff support, site improvements, all of the above.
This is Nancy Pedersen, the Recreation and Visitor Services Lead for BLM Arizona. So to add to the details Yuma Field Office was just sharing, this again, the funds that come through the recreation fees, all of those funds with the LTVA stays on site and goes back into improving the site areas. So we were just sharing there of maintenance, law enforcement, staffing support, visitor services, site improvements, the revenues reinvested back at the location.
Thank you. Question from Tim Painter. Is there any plan to impose fee rates on the free non-LTV areas like along Plumosa Road?
Hey, Tim, this is Bill. So no, there are no plans at current to make any changes to our resource management plan that identify those 5 free areas as free. And that's how they'll always be. It should be noted that they're free. There are no amenities out there, and there is a 14-day limit though.
Okay, James McCreary with a question. Wouldn't another solution be for Congress to increase the budget for the BLM to address the needs of the LTVA? For those of us who are concerned about increasing fees, should we be also contacting our members of Congress and advocating for increasing BLM's recreation budget?
James, thank you for your comments and questions. This is Ray Castro, Field Manager. And yes, that's totally something that you can do. We wouldn't be opposed for it here at the Yuma Field Office. The need is there. You as a recreationist and visitor to the public lands know what the needs are, know where the BLM deficits are. So yes, you're encouraged to do so if you choose to. So thank you for your question and comment.
Next question is Douglas Tooley. Have you considered reduced usage from fee increases?
Hi, Douglas. Yes, I've done a lot of modeling. And like I said, I have 25 years of running, demonstration of that. When we increase fees, we absolutely know that we're going to reduce permits, the number of permits that are sold. But we also know that that tends to rebound and come back. It's such a very unique offering with these LTVAs. And yeah, there's a little sticker shock anytime we make any kind of adjustment. But by and large, that offering provides what people are looking for in a location they want to be at the time of year they want to be there, and they'll come back.
Okay, next question from Ed Willis. Why was new structure used but not similar to prior year recreation fee program spending and accomplishments highlights of 2021, 2022, and 2023? It's showing carryover funds that are not shown in this proposal. From 2023 to 2024, there is a $1,190,278.31 apparently missing amount over carryover revenue.
Ed, can we get some clarification on your question, please?
Ed, are you available to unmute yourself?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Okay, so hold on, let me get my notes. So the clarification is this. When you go on to the Yuma Field Office on the LVTA, and you'll see 3 PDFs down at the bottom that are the recreational fee program spending and accomplishment highlights of 2021, 2022, and 2023. As you go through them on page 2, you'll see revenue and expenditures, and then below it will be the fiscal year expenditures. So you'll have a revenue, for example, fiscal year 2021 revenue. It had an end of the year carryover from fiscal year 2020 of $252,478.98. On every single one that I went through, there was a carryover up until 2023. And let me grab that one real fast. And on that one, it shows, oops, I had so many papers here. Give me 1 second. It is showing on the recreational fee program spending and accomplishment highlights of 2023 on revenue and expenditures. It is showing on fiscal year 2023 revenue that you have a carryover from prior years of 409,426.27. And then on your expenditures, when that is done, that's your expenditures at funds for fiscal year 2024. It is showing total available funds for fiscal year 2024 of $1,190,278.31. And that is not included in anywhere in your revenue on your proposal draft that I saw.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for your question. Thank you for providing a clarification to it. So that carryover, that well on La Posta Tyson that we received some Great American Outdoor Act funding for, we, the Yuma Field Office, used 1232 funds for that project as well. So that carryover that you see in the FY23 heading into FY24 was used for that project.
Ray, could you explain your use of 1233, your numbers there, your numeric reference for?
Yes, so 1232 is an account from these fee areas. So these recreational fee areas are set up in accounts. So the money that we received from the LTVA campground sites that you see as carryover was utilized to supplement a project funded by the Great American Outdoors Act.
Okay, so I have a problem with that. So if it's funded by the Great American Outdoors Act, how is that tying into the LVTA when everything you've been saying is saying that the revenue from the LVTA and only the revenue from LVTA is supposed to be used in the LVTA and not anything else? So the problem here is that it's very confusing and convoluted to track that. And in the new system that whoever the management was that decided to go this, they changed the basic accounting formula on that. So it is appearing as, I mean, it's not in there. So on your proposal, you didn't mention anything about that. So this proposal's flawed, or the reporting is flawed, because it's not just that one. You also have a discrepancy from 2022 to 2023. I think you guys need to go back and revisit those numbers a bit. See how they tie into everything, because you've got problems on the carryover from prior years of 409,426.27, but on the year before that, it's 700. So this brings up, how can we believe the numbers when we're finding problems in the numbers? I'm sorry, but.
So Ed, that carryover does get used. That was money from the LTVAs that got used in the LTVAs to supplement additional funding that we received. We are allowed to utilize funding that comes from Congress for special projects like these to enhance recreation opportunities. And we also supplement with additional LTVA funding.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to go back to a question that we had in here earlier that made some references. While we've asked some questions, or some questions have been asked here previously about senior passes, etc. One of the questions was posed with regards to a senior pass, and as an example being Bishop, California had a 20% discount for seniors with an America the Beautiful pass. On their 30-day long-term camping permit. This 20% would reduce the LTVA from $600 to $480 for seniors. How would this be relevant or not relevant to the LTVA?
Who had that question?
That was Thomas Finnerty.
Hey, Thomas, Bill, it's Bill here. So that situation up there in Bishop is very unusual. And they first started marketing themselves as an LTVA, which caused all kinds of question of could the LTVA permit issued in Imperial, at La Posa, Palm Springs, El Centro be used in Bishop? Ultimately, even though they call it a long-term visitor area, it's not. It falls under a different kind of fee structure. And it's more in line with an amenity fee site rather than an individual SRP like what you get when you go to your LTVAs here.
And just to add a little bit more with that, the Bill mentioned ISRP, it's individual special recreation permit. Those are for use in special areas. So it's a certain kind of designation. And that's how that permit structure works. But it does not have, America the Beautiful passes do not apply to individual special recreation permits. The amenity sites, which it can include both the standard amenity sites or expanded amenity sites, may apply different America the Beautiful passes. It just depends on the type of use. So at the beginning of the presentation, we shared some of the standard amenity sites like TK Jones, the Senator Wash, and a few other spots. And those ones, depending on their day use or the category, all of the America the Beautiful passes could apply to those. So it would mean that there would be a fee. Like if you have one of those passes, you could access for free those standard sites. There are certain things like campgrounds and some other areas that are different categories called expanded amenity, and they provide different services. And those don't have a discount for all America the Beautiful passes, but they do provide a discount with a senior pass and with the access pass. And that is structured into the Yuma plans as well as the other 6 proposed, excuse me, as well as all of the proposed plans for BLM Arizona. So there's 6 out for public comment right now. And so some of that is that there's different categories of, there's different ways that we can set fees on public lands. And then again, we had mentioned it earlier, but the FLRIA, the Federal Lands Recreation and Enhancement Act, how it works is based on amenities provided or on services provided in locations, and there's not the authority under FLRIA to provide discounts for particular groups of people. Instead, it's based on the site itself.
Thank you. Next question from Tim Painter. Why are you using the CPI urban rather than rural?
And I can answer that as well. Again, I'm Nancy Patterson, the BLM Arizona Recreation and Visitor Services Lead. The CPIU, that stands for the Consumer Price Index, and the CPIU in particular, it's the broadest and most comprehensive measure of the rate of inflation for goods and services that represents over 90% of the total US population. So it's the broadest, most comprehensive, and that's why that particular CPIU is selected, because it represents the majority of the US, 90%.
We have a question from Logan. What is the increase? Oh, excuse me. What was the last time these fees were increased?
Hi, Logan, it's Bill. So the last time the fee increase was in 2008. The original increase before that was in 2006. The permit went to 180 or to 140 in 2006. And then in 2008, it went to the 180, which is where it's been continuously since. If you were to plug that in, figure $40 every 2 years, run it up to 2004, that normal standard way of doing it puts you at a $500 permit just in 2024 without considering any of the contract costs, labor, all of that kind of stuff, and without the input from that Office of Inspector General audit when they came down, took a look at things and said, you're understaffed, you need to make adjustments and correct these things.
Thank you. Next question is from Susan Bush. The fact that the trash and pit toilets are overrun, the staffing is needed, mostly volunteers, right? The fact that the new dump station and water station at Tyson washes dry, aren't these all management problems? I think so. It seems to me the management needs to do a better job.
Hi, Susan, it's Bill. Great question and great topic. So trash was an issue of contract. We outran the contract capabilities of what we had. As far as the vault toilets, again, the use was exceeded what the contract was originally written for. With regard to the cleaning of them, another thing that was struck down, I'm also the volunteer coordinator for the Yuma Field Office. I used to have 130 volunteers, and I was forced to reduce that to 100 and then down to 80. And this last year, I operated with about 69 volunteers. I'm being told to cut where we can make cuts. Regrettably, sometimes those cuts get into the operational aspect of what we're doing. I have to staff the contact stations. If you were out there last year, you probably noted I ran La Posa Tyson 7 days a week. The other 3 contact stations were open 5 days a week, simply because I had to cut down volunteer numbers. It's a rough position trying to find volunteers who are willing to clean those toilets and deal with the stuff that happens in them and happens from that public that's out there utilizing those. Those are not paid employees. Those are volunteers that do it out of the goodness of their heart. They receive a meager, and I do mean meager, camp rate reimbursement, and that's about it. So I don't know what the best answer is here. Quite honestly, it makes sense to increase revenue, have staff on board, have a volunteer program that is viable and fully staffed, and then maybe we can address some of these things. But something's got to give. And right now, we're operating as thinly as we can to make things happen.
Bill, this is Dolores. I just wanted to kind of maybe seek some clarification too, and maybe add to what the information you're providing. And I know this is also available in the plan, is that those volunteers receive stipends, and that stipend does come from the fees that are made at the LTVA. Is that correct?
Hi, Dolores. Great question. No, the volunteers do not get a stipend. They get a camp rate reimbursement.
Okay.
A stipend would be a set fee based upon their duties or whatever. We give them a camp rate reimbursement, and basically it is to offset their own expenditures while they are on site.
But that is calculated in, just for the public's knowledge, in the plan, and is available for visibility in there as well, those numbers.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Okay, we've got another question with regards to the decals. So if you're going to allow 3 decals for the LTVA, I suggest that you enforce that you confirm that there's valid registration for each permit in the same name to help prevent people from sharing. Go ahead. I think Bill is probably going to be the best one for this one.
Chris, that's a great question. And it's something that we address every single year. We have people who buy a long-term permit, indicate that they're registering, 2 or more vehicles. Ideally, we like to see our volunteers or our rangers put the decals on the vehicles. That doesn't always happen. And consequently, sometimes vehicles get sold or traded or moved around or abandoned. Decals get removed. Ideally, every aspect, volunteer, park ranger, law enforcement ranger, everyone out there is continuously looking for those kind of things. And if we find a primary violation that allows us to go to a camp and we start looking and seeing that there's not matching decals or that there's no registration receipt for the decal, then it allows us to dig in a little deeper. Usually I get questions and calls quite often from our law enforcement. Hey, can you tell me where permit 496 was sold? I know right where that permit was sold. I can go to that station or have my volunteers open up the door, pull up that record, and then we can start doing name comparisons and figure out if that's valid or relevant. But does it happen and is it a problem? Absolutely.
Thank you. We have a question from Logan. Why did you choose to do this now as opposed to when more people are in town or have the opportunity to participate? Worried about having 9,000 snowbirds show up to your Yuma office upset?
Logan, Ray Castro here. We had previously addressed this question about us having the capabilities to do virtual comment periods, and we are going to have some in-person comment sessions as well, and public meetings and information sessions. So we're open to receiving these comments. Please forward the links over to your folks. Let them know when we'll be in Quartzsite for these information sessions or public meetings, and we're open to accepting your comments.
Okay, question from Susan Jones. Wouldn't it be prudent to enforce those using the facilities without permits to purchase one? The volunteers can't or won't, and there are people using these facilities after hours when the volunteers are off duty.
Let me have it. You got to turn us on. Oh, we are on. I'm sorry. Susan, that's a great question. Volunteers are not to do any kind of enforcement. That's their job. They monitor, they'll let the park rangers know. If need be, we'll bring law enforcement into it. We are continuously working to maintain compliance out there. Fee compliance, compliance with the supplemental rules, all across the board. But don't think for a minute that I want those volunteers engaging with someone who's already entered into conduct or behavior that's inappropriate or contrary to the goals and objectives of the BLM. There's safety issues, there's things that we just don't want them doing, and enforcement of any kind is not it.
Okay. Another question from Ed Willis. What are the additional challenges created by smaller style conversion vehicles, such as retrofitted vans, buses, or passenger cars? Please explain how this affects site management and visitor conflicts quoted from the proposal, please.
Hey, Ed, this is Bill. I'd like to take that question. So folks that don't show up in conveyance that are fully outfitted with holding tanks, that kind of stuff, create a lot of unusual situations for us. Composting toilets. I'm a big fan of the technology, and when it's properly employed, it works really great. Not everybody, though, that's in a van or a converted bus has a legitimate composting toilet. And consequently, we are running into copious amounts of human waste and other byproducts that are just thrown into bags, thrown on the ground. Sometimes they make it into the dumpster, but it is increasing the amount of trash. Last year I had that green John Deere up there, and probably 50% of what I was picking up off the ground trying to smash down into those dumpsters was bagged compost toilet refuse. So it creates a lot of issues. When we have a lot of people out there that are not in self-contained vehicles, they're just in tents, trucks, vans, cars, whatever, that puts a lot of additional stress. There's 13 toilets out there in La Posa, and I'll tell you what, every one of them last year ran the gamut of just being too full to even be sanitary anymore. And it's because of these high numbers of visitors that aren't coming down in self-contained vehicles. They're exceeding our infrastructure capabilities. And those are some of the unique situations with that.
Thank you. Next question's from Susan Bush. Would not the Public Lands Act prohibit the BLM from leasing land to solar farms? Does this have any impact on the fee proposals?
So Susan, this is Bill. Thank you for your question. Kind of completely separate topics. The LTVAs are for recreation. They are not intended for solar farms. When I talked to you earlier about the ARA solar that went in, I just wanted more solar panels put on the contact stations to increase our capability and provide power for our internal use. As far as the solar farms that you're seeing spread all across the desert Southwest, Arizona, California, gosh, they're all over the Western United States now, probably all over the United States. Those are wonderful things, but it doesn't affect what we're doing with the recreation program.
Okay, next question from Tim Painter. Are you proposing hiring 10 new law enforcement officers? Will they be writing non-payment citations, speeding citation, noise citations?
Hi, hey, this is Bill again. Tim, so law enforcement rangers are not park rangers. Park rangers are not law enforcement rangers in the Bureau of Land Management. Two completely different things, both uniformed entities for the agency. Your law enforcement has law enforcement authority, law enforcement capability. Your park rangers have a different style and a different way of accomplishing what needs to be done out there. Sorry about that. Let me get your question. So it's not 10 law enforcement. It'll be 4 law enforcement and 6 park rangers, both with different sets of duties.
Thank you. Another question from Susan Jones. Has BLM took into account those who won't pay the $600 for LTVA use and will move to the 14-day limit areas and overrun those? Wasn't that why BLM chose to make the LTVAs in the first place, to preserve and protect from overuse?
Hi, Susan. Hi, Susan. It's Bill again. Yes, we are considering what that possibility is. Those 5 free 14-day areas are still in the management plan that addresses that overuse that was occurring in some of the dispersed areas. Yeah, I'm concerned about what the potential for 14-day overstay trespass could look like. It's going to be interesting and it's going to be a management issue for us, no two ways about it. But I do think by and large, the majority of those amenities out there are going to pull people back into the LTVAs and make it a more tenable and, and more enjoyable situation and a recreational experience for them.
Thank you. We have Douglas Tooley. Thank you for this public process. This communication is far behind as the need for fees increases. I believe reasonable users understand the need for fee increases, but the degree of this increase appears draconian, especially low-income disabled and for the low-income disabled and seniors. I'd urge you to go slower to develop win-win community relations. Revising proposals, coming back to the community in December and January could be awesome.
Thank you, Douglas, for your comments, and please get that submitted via email or mail to the Yuma Field Office. Thank you.
Another one from Douglas Tooley. I understand the enabling legislation limits, but the comments about recreational use is disparaging, all the more so for low-income people who come south for health reasons.
Thank you, Douglas, once again, and please submit this as a comment via email to our web address or mail to the Yuma Field Office.
From Tim Painter. Does the 3.3 million fee increase provide a profit for your operational expenses? If it results in positive revenue, what occurs with the windfall?
Hi, Tim. That's a great question. If we're fortunate enough to actually have carryover funds, and I believe that's what you're talking about when you say positive revenue, or refer to it as a windfall. As has been stated by every member of management involved with this, if we wind up with extra money, we're going to continue to make enhancements and improvements in your campground. Those LTVAs are a wide open slate. There's a number of things that I would love to see out there. If we can solve this water issue for La Posa, one of the first things I would love to see happen for people is, token operated showers where they could get a hot shower, maybe even a laundry facility. We need that additional gray water to help work those sewage lagoons, because we have a freeboard requirement that you have to have so much water over the top of the wastewater and waste that'll be in them. So if we find unique and good ways that can generate an enjoyable, enhanced experience for you while helping us meet our environmental requirements and the needs of the campground, it'll be a win-win for everybody. BLM's not going to just take that money and sit on it and then eventually see it scraped back by the government and stuffed into the general fund. And I understand that's a concern. It's a concern for me as a taxpayer. But I believe that this office will go forward and continue to spend that money into the program, and you guys will reap the rewards of it.
Thank you, Bill. Another question from Susan Bush. So if federal funds are not used for offsetting LTVA expenses, what exactly are the federal funds used for? And where can we find information in terms of the budget?
Hi, Susan, Ray Castro here. And federal funds can be used in a various manner, whether it be wilderness areas, whether it be national historic trails, non-fee recreation sites. In our presentation earlier, we have 1.185 million acres of free 14-day areas. And so those funds designated by Congress towards the Yuma Field Office can be used in all those other areas aside from the fee areas that we presented here tonight.
Thank you very much. We've got a question from Marcus Ray. Is there a payment plan for seasonal permit? Can we start paying on it 6 months out as long as it's complete before we arrive?
Get that one.
Hey, Marcus, this is Bill. That's a great question. And that's something that if you feel strongly about it, I need you to put that in a comment. Maybe we do put these LTVA permits and work it on an installment plan. I don't know if that's a viable solution or even an operational capability for us, but I think everything's on the table. Everything right now is worth looking at. We wouldn't want to take money in advance, but maybe once you're on site, maybe that becomes an option for folks to consider and look at. Like I said, throw those comments on the right website and get those comments to us so we can look at everything and, try to formulate a good plan here.
Next question from Tim Painter. Are you willing to include in your fee increase a concrete plan to build shower facilities?
Tim, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, I've advocated for that for years. The thing that's going to keep that from coming to fruition is just having a viable water source. Once all of this wrangling gets done with the infrastructure that's been built in Tyson, and we figure out if we've got water or don't have water, that would allow us to proceed. Right now, my main goal is to make sure that we take care of that well at La Posa South, that people utilize that water for drinking water, and it is good drinkable water. I've heard some comments to the contrary, and I'm not sure where those are coming from because I drink that water. I've drank it for 25 years and, you know, I'm still in good shape. But right now, first priority is provide potable drinking water, water for washing out at the, you know, at the dump station, and then we'll go from there. If we can get a water source though, I think everything is on the table as an option for an enhancement for you guys.
Next question from Charlotte Box. I have heard you talk and I hear you saying that people are on limited incomes do not go out for recreation. Yes, many are cheap living reasons. Others are low income that like to camp out, be in nature which evidently does not count as recreating to you.
Hi, Charlotte. Thanks for your comment and your question. Recreation can be any means that you want it to be. And there are other recreational avenues for people who don't have money to go to the LTVAs or don't want to go to the LTVAs that can still enjoy camping, being out in nature, all of that kind of stuff. The key component that I want to encourage folks to remember here is that these LTVAs require a fee for what you utilize while you're there. There are amenities that are placed there. This is not, you know, an entitlement. It's a fee campground, and that's all there is to it. That's all it's ever been from its inception in 1983.
This is Nancy Patterson, the BLM Arizona Recreation and Visitor Services lead. And it's important to remember as well that the vast majority of the 12.1 million acres of BLM administered land in Arizona is available for fee-free. There's no charge to recreate on those areas. So the plans here with the LTVA and the fee amenity site, as well as the other plans that are out right now for public comment, those are specific sites that do have either a proposed recreation fee, and the majority of BLM public land in Arizona is fee-free.
We have a question from Douglas Tooley. The cross nature of the Imperial LTVA, which also applies to the Social Security Office, has there been any input from California BLM officials?
Thank you, Douglas. Ray Castro here. So the Imperial LTVA is actually managed out of the Yuma Field Office along with the La Posa LTVA. There are some LTVAs managed out of California. However, this business plan does not include those.
Thank you. From Tim Painter. Where do you get $148,000 for camp hosts? Are camp hosts paid? Where do these funds go?
Hi, Tim, this is Bill. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the volunteer coordinator for the Yuma Field Office. That 148,000 is in support of the volunteer program. As I stated, I used to have 130 volunteers. It was cut down exponentially to now I'm about 69, 70 volunteers. Camp hosts are not paid per se. What they do receive is a camp rate reimbursement. There's also additional costs that go into supporting them. There's fuel for generators. There's maintenance for some of the things that they have to upkeep or that are in support of them. So that 148,000 is a blanket cost, not just all going to volunteers as a camp rate reimbursement, but it is for total support of that volunteer program.
And in that same line, we do have Georgette Bales with why would you have to decrease volunteers when they're working for free? doesn't make sense.
And Georgette, thanks for the question. As mentioned before, the volunteers do receive a camp rate reimbursement, and there is a support efforts and materials and all kinds of things that go into support the work that they are doing. It's not that they are free. I wish it was for free, but by the same token, I can't expect it to cost them money to work in support of the BLM's programs.
There was 3 questions straight that did address what you just answered there. So you'll notice that I placed them into the answered column. And that, again, that was related to the fees that we had there associated with volunteers. The park rangers you are speaking of, and this comes from Willow Murphy, the park rangers you're speaking of will basically be camp hosts then, question mark. If they have no legal capability of enforcement, then they're just camp hosts at that point. Rangers can enforce. Looks like we're looking for some clarification on some of those rules.
Hi, Willow, this is Bill. You misunderstood my response. Those park rangers do have the authority. They have the authority of the Bureau of Land Management, and they are tasked with gaining first voluntary compliance and making sure that you are in compliance or any visitor is in compliance with the supplemental rules. Once they bring that to your attention, your conduct either changes or it doesn't. If it doesn't, then you will be visited by law enforcement. And that's the first mechanism. They can go make camp contacts. They can tell you to put your dog on a leash. They can, in fact, tell you to utilize a hose when you're dumping. Volunteers don't do that. If you refuse or decline that direction from that park ranger, you can be assured appropriate action will be taken.
Thank you, Bill. And in line with that, we have a question from Richard DeVillers. What changes, more enforcement / staff, site improvements, better maintained vault toilets, etc., can we expect to see if the proposed increase is passed? And importantly, when can we expect to see these changes? Is there a plan in place to start these changes as soon as the price increase is passed? Hopefully, this is not just a drastic price increase in the hopes of losing visitors and no changes.
Thank you for your question, Richard. This is Ray Castro. And yes, that's correct. More enforcement staff, site improvements, better maintained vault toilets, the capabilities of us to increase more trash pickups, more vault toilet pumpings, improve our infrastructure. Yes, as soon as this plan passes, if it's approved, we don't have a concrete plan as to when it will begin, but immediately as we start seeing those funds come into the Yuma Field Office, they'll go directly back to the LTVA program. So it's dollar for dollar. Every dollar that you see go into the Yuma Field Office from the LTVA program will go directly back into the infrastructure, into the camping experience, into making improvements for your recreation.
Thank you. And I just want to note that we have hit the top of the hour, but we do have a few questions, at least 2 questions still left in our chat that I would like to address. And then we'd be looking to close our experience this evening, and with the expectation that everyone will take advantage of some time between now and the next available meetings to review our business plans, so that we can have more details here. So we have 3 questions in the chat. Last one being from Donna Hall, that was posed at 7:05, and but we've got a few kind of trickling in here, so we'll kind of address. But Donna Hall right now, unless our management would like to stay a little longer, we can figure that out here. But Albert Tokarczyk has a question here. Given the really high cost of living increases we have seen this year, could you stage the increase over 3 years? And I believe we kind of answered this a little bit earlier, but we can always restate that.
Hi, Albert. Ray Castro. Thank you for your question. Once again, this is something that you could suggest, something that you could include in your comments, and that's something that we can take a look at as well.
Thank you. From Lucretia Lake, what are the calculated consequences to 14-day dispersed camping areas around Quartzsite who are displaced as a result of this steep price increase?
Lucretia, that's a great question. And trying to calculate what that would look like is kind of, it's a moving target. We anticipate that we will lose people from the LTVAs. We don't necessarily know that we will displace those folks to the 14-day areas. They may not even stay in the Quartzsite area. And they may not even come at all. And so those are concerns. That's something that we're definitely keeping an eye on, but there's no way to calculate what that would look like. My guess, just having done this for 25 years, is that we'll probably see overstay trespass in the 14-day areas, and it's probably going to be an increased enforcement issue for law enforcement and for the park rangers to address.
Thank you. We've got Donna Hall. Thank you for holding this public Zoom meeting. It's been informative and helpful for everybody able to ask questions and share their thoughts. My questions are along the lines of, couldn't there be a smaller increase over a longer period of time? And could there be different price levels for seniors, low incomes, etc.? I will put my input and feedback in the comment email. Thank you for the meeting tonight.
Thank you, Donna. Ray Castro here with the Yuma Field Office, and thank you for putting that feedback into comments, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Last question for the evening is from Thomas Finnerty. I just wanted to thank you for your dedication to public lands and the patience and the courtesy for answering the questions this evening. Thank you, Thomas. Also, too, I just wanted to point to everyone that's still within the meeting that I've placed the relevant links to the business plans, the story map, as well as the amenity fees, announcements, and some good relevant links to where this video, as well as our other other virtual meeting sessions, will be posted for review. So if you have friends that did not get to make tonight's meeting or yesterday's meeting, those videos will be available on our BLM Arizona YouTube channel for viewing. And we encourage you, after reading these plans, or if your friends would like to attend the September 25th virtual meeting, that will be covering the same aspects here in order to solicit more public comments. Please make sure that they attend and register. And the links we've just placed in the chat have all the avenues in which you can register, get more information, and find the addresses you need. One more question before we go, and I'm going to allow this one in. Have you consulted with the Quartzsite business community as to how long these huge fee increases affect them as your area partners?
Hi, Tim. Ray Castro, Field Manager, Yuma Field Office. We've sent this news release out to Quartzsite, the town of Quartzsite, and we look forward to hearing from them as well as our neighbor, as a partner. And we have a public meeting coming up October 9th. We look forward to seeing everyone there. Quartzsite, La Paz County, we invite everybody out for comments and to engage in this conversation as we move forward through these draft business plans.
I do also encourage folks to make sure, if you're not already, following BLM Arizona Facebook. On that area, in that page, we also do provide events, which include the public meeting events that are being held in person coming up that you are encouraged to attend. And any updates or any changes that we're seeing to any of our sites or any goings on within the BLM are often posted there, as well as our blm.gov website. Again, I encourage you to stay engaged, stay informed. And with that, I will turn it over to Ray Castro to close us out this evening.
I just want to say thank you once again for everyone who participated in this evening's virtual meeting. We hope to see you on October 9th at the La Posa South Pavilion and Quartzsite, just south of Quartzsite. And we appreciate all your comments, taking time out of your day to provide your feedback as we work through these draft business plans. Thank you very much and have a good evening.